Hello, everybody. I am Tara, and I run the Geek Initiative LARPs. And I wanted to talk to you today about some things that I'm borrowing from other game designs and other types of LARPs in Freeform. So I'm primarily a Freeform LARP designer, meaning you can expect the participants to generate their own stories based upon some rich backstories and other storytelling elements that you as a designer create. So most of the live action games I've designed so far rely very heavily on those backstories and person-to-person interaction for that kind of storytelling, which has worked out really well. But right now I am designing a LARP called Chariot Generations, which will be in 2020. You can find more about it at chariotlarp.com. And I've decided to take some more structured elements and place them in this LARP. And part of the reason I'm doing that is because people need that kind of structure built in, especially when you're scaling up to more people. So I've written and run a lot of LARPs for 6, 15, 20 people, but this one's a little bit bigger, so I wanted to scale it appropriately. And I've observed some really cool habits and features from other games, and I'm borrowing those for this particular LARP. So how am I doing that? The first thing is I'm looking towards other LARPs that I've really enjoyed and seeing what really works for them. And there are a few LARPs that really stand out here. The first one is Dragon Thrones. They're really not primarily a LARP, although it does include LARP. LARP is just one part of the event. They also do other types of features, they call them. So they have a mega game map. They sometimes do escape room elements, mysteries, and smaller features that they add in there where you can go off and kind of do another quest. So they do that really well. And some of the features are things like mead tastings. They're not even necessarily, story-based adventures, but they're cool and they generate more story because you get a bunch of people together drinking mead, then they're going to create more fun times and story together. So they're one example. Another example is Imperial Majesty by Learn LARP. Now, Learn LARP is really known for doing amazing freeform events, but Imperial had a little bit more structure to it. And so they actually had modules in their LARP. So there was one where we kind of had to break past like a security thing, like a computer security thing, and it really reminded me of like a Boffer Larp module. And when I've talked about Boffer Larp modules in an international LARP context, people internationally are like, what do you mean by a mod? And one kind of module that you do in Boffer Larps is like a combat module where you'll take a small amount of people out, they'll have some kind of combat encounter, but it could also be a story-based encounter or a mystery they have to solve. And Boffer Larps pull this off to various degrees of success, but a lot of them are really strongly built on those module, on that module format. And although I design in Freeform, I've actually been a LARPer for longer in a Boffer context. So I'm definitely borrowing some of the good habits from Boffer Larp. We tend to, minimize Boffer Larp when we're talking about freeform games, but there is actually a lot of cool stuff that you can learn from Boffer Larps as a freeform game designer. And one thing is how to add in a little bit more structure. So that's another good example. The third is Armistice Arcane by Peculiar Crossroads Productions. They also they kind of have a schedule-ish type of thing, but they do switch stuff up based on what the players do. And they do have those other features that they run people through. I've been in a cool escape room that they did. So they're another example of that. And they do a particularly good job of combining it sort of seamlessly in to the rest of the event so that it just feels like a bigger part of the story, which is one of the goals that I really have for Chariot. If I could run it in that smoothly, it would be great. Now for Chariot, we have an online component, which will be running all weekend, and we have the in-person component, which runs in our location. And so one challenge I have is actually coordinating that and running that together and figuring out how to put the modules in so that the online players and the in-person players can both contribute to that meaningfully and interact with each other. We also have some interesting space limitations. Our in-person game runs on a site that's one floor that I chose partially because it's largely accessible. It's really easy to get to. People don't have to do stairs. The parking is really easy, stuff like that. But we only have one module room that we have to convert throughout the event for different things. So I'm going to run through a list of some of the cool stuff that I am doing at this event. So we're going to have an escape room. We're going to have a black box. We're going to have online role play, which people in person can also participate in. We're going to have online text-based role play. And depending on the weather and what the participants want to do, we're going to have some combat as well outside. So the escape room is already designed and tested. We actually just ran it again this weekend. So that is kind of ready to go. And that's a thing that several people at a time can go in, experience, and try to affect the outcome of one part of the LARP. I don't want to spoil it, so I won't say more. The black box scenario, that will be where the room is available for people to do black box scenes. So if they want to explore something from the past, or if they want to pull up information from data stored on the ship and explore it and interact with that, they can do it. It's basically free time for people to interact with various aspects of their characters in an enclosed environment. So one thing that worked really, really well, again, at Imperial Majesty, is the black box room was actually part of the game itself. It had a magical function called the Arca Tenebrarum. And I thought that was really fascinating because you could refer to it in-game, you could invite people to it in-game, and I'm looking forward to borrowing that idea and doing something similar in Chariot, because in a sci-fi setting, awesome. You know, we're able to have kind of like a holodeck type thing, and we're able to use that in-game. And that's what really sold me on the whole concept of black box. So we will have that available. We have the online RP. I'm actually more known for running digital LARPs than I am for running in-person ones. So it's going to be very similar to how we normally run digital live action experiences, except we're going to have events set at specific times so that we can ensure appropriate interaction between the people on site and the people who have purchased remote tickets who are role-playing throughout the weekend. We also don't want to expect our online role players to be in front of a computer 24/7. We want to give them the option to come and go as they please. And we're also going to have a room where they can, it's called a drop-in room, where they can just come in, hang out, do some Freeform Larp, and just have that access there. But we're going to give them specific times during the weekend where things will happen and they can come in. Some of those things might change on the fly. My online GMs, I try to pick people who are also, like me, really strong at kind of changing things up on the fly based upon the needs of the players. And those modules will probably change a lot at the last minute. And I'm very open to that and looking forward to that challenge. We also have an online text-based module. So these are things that happen basically through chat and through people trying to accomplish things in this text-based chat. So that will be its own module. Now the in-person players are actually going to have basically a bunch of handheld devices, probably like Kindles, where they can go in and interact, and they won't have to be in a room to do this. It's not going to be like they're going to have to fight over using the one laptop in the one room. They can actually take these, and especially for the text-based component where sound won't get in the way, they can sit down and type on those and participate in that module. So if people are looking for something to do at any point in time, they can actually interact with others in the text-based chat as well. So it gives them another medium to do that. It's also something cool to do if they're feeling like awkward at dinner or something like that, and they want something a little more relaxed. They can have some time to themselves and they can, you know, talk in the text-based chat. And then lastly, we have what a lot of Boffer players are more familiar with, which is a combat module. Now, our event does take place in Virginia in August, so I do not expect people to be outside for much of the time because it's very hot. But and we do have a climate-controlled environment indoors. But there are people who want to participate in combat. So one of my friends is writing some combat rules, and we're going to have some tournament-style stuff outside. Kind of like, how does the crew keep up their combat practice and some physical stuff. So we're also going to try to make some of this tournament be as physically accessible as possible. So someone like me who doesn't do a lot of running or heavy physical activity can still participate, because it's like a point and shoot thing with these guns with the safety tips, basically Nerf guns. So those are the different modules, and scheduling them is going to be very interesting, because anything that involves the coordination of the online players and the in-person players has to be kind of right on point. Like, I'm going to have somebody specifically in charge of making sure things run on schedule and communicating that to everybody, because it's a little more time sensitive than usual. And lastly, there's another thing that we don't always think about as a module. So we're going to have a mocktail party, which is a really fun 1960s style cocktail party, basically. And the event itself is dry, so we're doing mocktails instead of cocktails. And that's going to be an opportunity for people to sort of wrap up their stories and deal with whatever big thing happens at the end. And that event, of course, is dependent upon the choices that the online and in-person players make before the end of the event. So that's their opportunity to wrap things up, kind of talk about their feelings in game, and have one last hurrah before the debrief. So some LARPs use that type of module as a kind of a wind down. I personally prefer to use it more as like a wrap up. So if you want to wind down during that time, you totally can. But if you want to use it as like your dramatic escalation before the LARP is off, you can do that too. And that's going to be the last module there. So again, I think a lot of times in Freeform Larp design, we just really, we just really crap on Boffer Larps, honestly, for some of the design decisions they make. But I think designing modules is a strength, and you can always have more than you need. So I could have 10 modules sitting in a binder ready to run for my, for my staff to run, and I might only use 4 of them. Or the game might get slow, and then I can throw some other stuff in there and just add a little bit of story in to make it completely relevant to the plot, and also to ensure that the players have agency and affect the plot. There are also a lot of small group things you can put in that are going to give people something to do and maybe help a new LARPer get in character, that kind of thing. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm here with my friends, we're all new, what do we do? It's totally easy to give them like a mini scenario or situation or a puzzle that they have to figure out, and kind of get them involved in the game, and maybe have them talk to other people to find out some of that information. So that's really important too. So again, modules, for a long time I ignored them because I love freeform so much, but modules are really a strength of Boffer Larp design, and I think we need to do more of that in freeform design, and I've seen it done with a lot of success. Imperial Majesty convinced me to fall in love with the black box scenario and to really just let people do what they want to do with it. It's just fantastic. And these other different pieces that other designers have kind of put together over time and that we've sort of grabbed together, it's just really going to make the event shine. So I hope you've enjoyed what I have to say here. I'd love to hear any comments, and thank you so much for listening.